They hate you, but you do not hear them now. Isn't that a delightful little game? Picture this, a room full of critics, their voices rising in a cacophony of judgment. Their words are sharp, their stares piercing. They're dissecting every move you make, every word you speak, every choice you dare to embrace. But you're sitting there serenely smiling, as if their noise doesn't even exist. It's not ignorance, oh no, it's defiance. A deliberate choice to rise above their venom and let their hatred fall away like raindrops on a stormy night. Hatred is a fascinating thing, isn't it? It's raw, primal, and utterly intoxicating for those who wield it. People hate what they fear, what they don't understand, what they can't control. And when they see someone who refuses to play their games, someone who dares to live unapologetically, it ignites something in them. They lash out, desperate to drag you down to their level, to shackle you with the same insecurities and limitations that bind them. But here's the trick: they can't touch you unless you let them. Their hatred only has power if you acknowledge it, if you let it seep into your soul and convince you that it matters. Oh, but they'll try. They'll come at you with everything they've got. Insults, accusations, lies, it doesn't matter. Their goal isn't to be truthful or fair. Their goal is to hurt you, to make you question yourself, to make you second guess every step you take. Because if they can get inside your head, if they can make you doubt, then they've won. They've pulled you back into their world where fear and insecurity reign supreme. And isn't that just what they want? To keep you small, to keep you manageable, to keep you within their reach. But here's the secret: they don't want you to know you don't have to listen. You don't have to let their words reach you. Oh, they'll scream louder, they'll try harder, but the louder they get, the more desperate they reveal themselves to be. Their hatred isn't a reflection of your worth, it's a reflection of their own fears. They see something in you that they don't have: freedom, confidence, power, and it terrifies them. So they hate. Not because of who you are, but because of who they aren't. It's almost funny, isn't it? The way they expend so much energy trying to tear you down while you're busy building yourself up. They're running in circles, consumed by their bitterness, while you're moving forward, unstoppable, unshaken. They don't realize that their hatred is nothing more than background noise, a distant hum that fades into irrelevance the moment you stop paying attention to it. And that's the beauty of it: you get to choose what you hear. You get to decide which voices matter and which ones don't. The world is full of people who will tell you who you should be, what you should do, how you should live. They'll try to mold you into their image, to make you conform to their expectations, to silence the parts of you that make them uncomfortable. But why should you? Why should you bend and break yourself to fit into their narrow little boxes? You weren't born to be a puppet, dancing to the strings of their opinions. You were born to be free, to be bold, to be unapologetically, unrelentingly yourself. When you stop hearing them, you reclaim your power. You take back the narrative. Their words lose their sting, their hatred loses its weight, and suddenly they're just shadows on the wall, flailing in vain as you step into the light. They can't touch you anymore, can't drag you down, can't make you question your worth. Because you know who you are, and that knowledge is unshakable. But let's be honest, it's not always easy. There will be moments when their voices creep in, when their words linger in the back of your mind, whispering doubts and fears. That's human, isn't it? To feel the sting of rejection, the weight of judgment. But feeling it doesn't mean accepting it. You have the power to let it go, to rise above, to remind yourself that their hatred says more about them than it ever could about you. And oh, the freedom that comes with that realization. When you stop hearing them, you start hearing yourself, your own voice, your own truth, your own desires. You start living for yourself, not for their approval or their acceptance. And in doing so, you become untouchable. Their hatred becomes nothing more than an echo, a faint reminder of a world you've left behind. They'll never understand it, of course. They'll keep shouting, keep spewing their venom, convinced that their words have power. But deep down, they know the truth. They know they can't reach you. And that terrifies them even more. Because if they can't hurt you, if they can't silence you, then what does that say about their own power? About their own lives? About the cages they've built for themselves? It's almost poetic, isn't it? The way their hatred reveals their weakness, their fear, their fragility. And the stronger you stand, the more it crumbles. You become a mirror, reflecting back all the things they hate about themselves. And that's why they'll keep coming for you. Because you're a reminder of what they could be, of the freedom they could have if only they dared to reach for it. But that's not your problem, is it? You don't owe them anything. Not your attention, not your energy, not your ears. Let them hate. Let them rage. Let them rage. Let them exhaust themselves in their futile attempts to bring you down. You have better things to do. You have a life to live, a legacy to build, a world to conquer. And their hatred, it's nothing more than a distraction, a fleeting nuisance that fades into insignificance the moment you choose to ignore it. You didn't come this far to be silenced. You didn't fight this hard to be shackled by their opinions. You've earned your place, your voice, your freedom, and no amount of hatred, no matter how loud, can take that away from you. So let them scream, let them judge, let them hate. It doesn't matter, because you're not hearing them. You're too busy living, thriving, being everything they said you couldn't be. And that's the greatest victory of all. Hatred is a peculiar thing, isn't it? It masquerades as strength, as conviction, as righteousness. But in reality, hatred is often the mask of fear, raw, unfiltered fear that consumes those who don't know how to face themselves. When people see something in you that challenges their understanding of the world, when you embody a strength or freedom they've been too afraid to claim for themselves, they react with hostility. Not because there's anything wrong with you, but because your existence forces them to confront the truth they've been avoiding. Fear is the seed of hatred, and it grows in the shadows of ignorance and insecurity. They fear what they don't understand. They fear what they can't control. And most of all, they fear being reminded of their own shortcomings. When they look at you, they see someone who has stepped out of line, someone who has dared to break free from the mold, someone who refuses to play by their rules, and that terrifies them. Because if you can do it, then what's stopping them? What excuse do they have for staying small, for staying stuck, for staying silent? Their hatred isn't about you, it's about them. It's about their inability to face the parts of themselves that yearn for freedom but are too scared to reach for it. You see, freedom is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it's exhilarating, empowering, and transformative. But on the other hand, it's terrifying. It requires you to let go of everything that's safe and familiar. It forces you to confront the unknown. And not everyone is ready for that. Most people would rather stay in their comfort zones, no matter how stifling, than risk the uncertainty of true freedom. So when they see you unapologetic, unrelenting, unafraid, it stirs something in them. It stirs their envy, their insecurity, their regret. They hate you not because you've done something wrong, but because you've done something they're too afraid to do. You've claimed your power, your voice, your life, and they can't stand the reminder of what they've given up. Hatred is their way of deflecting. It's their way of saying, it's not me, it's you, if they can convince themselves that you're the problem, that you're wrong, that you're a villain. Then they don't have to face their own fears. They don't have to look in the mirror and acknowledge the parts of themselves they've been avoiding. They don't have to admit that their hatred is just a symptom of their own inner turmoil. And yet they pour so much energy into their hatred, don't they? They spend their days dissecting your every move, their nights crafting insults and schemes, their thoughts consumed by the very person they claim to despise. It's almost ironic, isn't it? They hate you, yet they can't stop thinking about you. They hate you, yet they're the ones keeping you in the spotlight. They hate you, yet they can't seem to let you go. But here's the thing, their hatred says nothing about you and everything about them. It reveals their fears, their insecurities, their regrets. It reveals the chains they've placed on themselves, the limitations they've accepted, the dreams they've abandoned. And the louder they scream, the more obvious it becomes. Their hatred is their way of lashing out at a world they feel has wronged them, at a person who dares to live freely when they cannot. They'll try to make it about you, of course. They'll hurl insults, spread lies, twist your words, and distort your actions. They'll do everything in their power to paint you as the villain, to convince themselves and others that you're the one in the wrong. But deep down, they know the truth. Deep down, they know their hatred is a reflection of their own fears, not your flaws. And that's what makes it so hollow, so powerless, so relevant. The power lies in understanding this. When you realize that their hatred is not a measure of your worth, but a projection of their own insecurities, it loses its sting. Their words become meaningless, their judgments laughable, their anger a waste of energy. You see their hatred for what it is, a desperate attempt to deflect, to distract, to avoid facing the truth. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. That's the key to freedom, isn't it? Understanding that their hatred has nothing to do with you. It's not your responsibility to fix them, to placate them, to prove them wrong. You don't owe them an explanation, an apology, or even your attention. Their hatred is their burden to carry, not yours. And the moment you let go of the need to be understood, the need to be liked, the need to win them over, you become unstoppable. Because here's the truth, they don't want to admit they don't hate you because you're wrong. They hate you because you're right. They hate you because you've dared to live authentically, to embrace your power, to defy their expectations. They hate you because you've shown them what's possible, and that possibility terrifies them. It shakes the foundation of their carefully constructed world, a world built on conformity, fear, and self-doubt. But that's not your concern, is it? Their fears, their insecurities, their regrets, none of it is your responsibility. Your responsibility is to yourself, to your truth, to your freedom. You didn't choose this path to win their approval or avoid their hatred. You chose it because you couldn't stand the thought of living a lie. And that choice, that courage, that authenticity, that's what makes you unstoppable. So let them hate, let them scream, let them project their fears onto you. It doesn't matter. Their hatred is a reflection of their own struggles, not a judgment of your worth. And once you understand that, their words lose their power, their anger loses its grip, and their hatred becomes nothing more than a faint echo in the background of your life. Freedom is a curious thing. It isn't given, it's taken. It isn't quiet, it's deafening. It isn't about what others offer you, but what you decide to claim for yourself. In a world that thrives on conformity, choosing what you hear and value is the ultimate act of rebellion. The voices of the crowd, the whispers of critics, the relentless noise, they're all designed to keep you in line, to make you doubt, to make you hesitate. But the moment you choose to silence them, the moment you decide they don't matter, you take the first step toward true liberation. People are loud, aren't they? Their opinions come at you like a tidal wave crashing over everything you've worked to build. They'll tell you what's right, what's wrong, what's acceptable, and what isn't. They'll try to shape you, mold you, box you into something that feels familiar to them. Because the unfamiliar scares them. The unpredictable terrifies them. And someone who listens only to their own voice? That's the kind of person they can't control, can't contain, can't understand. But here's the thing, you don't have to hear them. Their words don't have to define your path. The world is filled with noise, but not all of it deserves your attention. Most of it is nothing more than static background chatter from people who don't know you, who don't understand you, who have no idea what it's like to walk in your shoes. They speak from their own fears, their own insecurities, their own limitations. And why should their limitations dictate your life? The choice of what to hear is yours, and it's the most powerful choice you can make. You could let their voices in, let their doubts seep into your mind, let their hatred gnaw at your confidence. Or you could close the door, block out the noise, and focus on the only voice that matters, your own. Because your voice knows the truth. Your voice knows what you want, who you are, and where you're meant to go. The world will try to drown it out, but it's always there, waiting for you to listen. When you stop hearing them, something incredible happens. The weight lifts. The doubts fade. The questions about whether you're good enough, whether you're doing the right thing, whether you belong, they disappear. Because you're no longer measuring yourself by their standards. You're no longer living for their approval. You're no longer bound by their rules. You're free to be exactly who you are, without apology, without hesitation, without fear. And oh, how they'll hate that. They'll scream louder, try harder, desperate to pull you back into their world, because your freedom is a threat to everything they've built their lives around. If you don't need their validation, if you don't care about their opinions, then what power do they have? None. And that terrifies them. So they'll lash out, they'll try to make you feel small, make you feel wrong, make you question everything you've worked for. But their hatred is just noise, and noise only has power if you let it. It's funny, really, how much effort they'll put into trying to be heard, as if their voices carry some great truth, some divine wisdom that you're foolish to ignore. But the truth is, their voices are often nothing more than echoes of the voices they've heard before. They're repeating what they've been taught, what they've been conditioned to believe, what they've never stopped to question, and you're the one who dared to question it. You're the one who saw through the facade, who realized that their voices are just that, voices. Not facts, not rules, not truth, just opinions loud and hollow. When you stop hearing them, you start hearing yourself. You start reconnecting with the dreams you've buried, the passions you've silenced, the parts of yourself you've hidden to make them comfortable. You start living for yourself, not for their expectations, not for their approval, not for their applause. And that's when you truly begin to live. Because a life lived for others is no life at all. It's a performance, a charade, a shadow of what it could be. But a life lived for yourself, that's freedom. That's power. That's everything. They'll call you selfish, of course. They'll say you're arrogant, reckless, out of touch. They'll accuse you of not caring, of being indifferent, of turning your back on them. But what they really mean is that they can't control you anymore. What they really mean is that they don't know how to exist in a world where you don't need their validation. And that's not your problem. Their discomfort is not your responsibility. Their inability to accept your freedom is not your burden to bear. Because freedom isn't about pleasing everyone. It's not about being liked or accepted or understood. It's about being true to yourself, even when it's hard, even when it's lonely, even when it feels like the whole world is against you. It's about standing tall in the face of their hatred and saying, I hear my voice, not yours. It's about choosing your path, your dreams, your truth, no matter how loud their objections become. And here's the beautiful thing, the more you listen to yourself, the quieter their voices become. They don't go away, of course. They'll always be there, lingering in the background, waiting for a moment of weakness. But they lose their power. They become whispers instead of roars, shadows instead of storms. Because you've made the choice to value your voice above all else. And that choice is unshakable. They'll never understand it, of course. They'll never understand how you can move forward without their approval, how you can find strength in yourself instead of their validation. They'll keep trying to make themselves heard, convinced that their opinions matter more than they do. But you'll keep going, keep growing, keep living your truth. Because you know what they don't? That freedom is worth everything. That your voice is worth everything. That your life lived on your terms is the greatest act of rebellion in a world that thrives on conformity. So let them talk. Let them judge. Let them hate. None of it matters. Their voices are just noise, and noise only has the power you give it. The only voice that matters is your own, and it's waiting for you to listen. When you do, the world changes. Not because they've stopped talking, but because you've stopped hearing them. And in that silence, you find the strength to be everything you were always meant to be. The world has a way of trying to shape you, to mold you into something that fits its expectations, its norms, its rules. It whispers, shouts, and sometimes screams, demanding that you comply, that you shrink, that you stay within the lines. But when you don't, when you dare to step outside of their comfort zones, you become the target of their anger, their fear, their resentment. They hate what they cannot control, what they cannot define, what they cannot silence. And in their hatred, they try to break you, to bring you back down to where they think you belong. But the power lies in not hearing them, not letting their voices dictate your path. It's not about shutting them up. It's about rising above the noise. They'll call you every name in the book, accuse you of every crime under the sun, and question every decision you make. They'll try to make you feel small, to make you doubt yourself, to make you second guess every step you take. But their hatred is not a reflection of your flaws, it's a reflection of their fears. It's their way of projecting their own insecurities onto you, of avoiding the mirrors you hold up to their lives. When you refuse to hear them, you rob them of their power. Their words lose their sting, their actions lose their impact, and their hatred becomes nothing more than a futile gesture in the face of your resolve. You begin to understand that their voices are not the truth, they are distractions, static background noise that does not deserve your attention. And as you tune them out, you tune into something far more profound yourself. You see, the world doesn't hate you because of who you are, it hates you because of what you represent. You are the embodiment of possibility, of freedom, of courage. You are the proof that it is possible to live authentically, unapologetically, without bending to the will of others. And that scares them, because if you can do it, then what excuse do they have for not doing the same? What excuse do they have for staying small, staying silent, staying stuck? Your existence forces them to confront their own choices, their own compromises, their own regrets. And rather than face those uncomfortable truths, they lash out at you. They pour their energy into tearing you down, into trying to make you feel as lost and afraid as they do. But their hatred is not your burden to bear. It is not your responsibility to fix them, to placate them, or to make them understand. Your responsibility is to yourself, to your truth, to your freedom. The beauty of it all is that you don't need their understanding, their approval, or their acceptance. You don't need them to see your worth, to validate your choices, to applaud your victories. Because the moment you stop hearing them, you realize that their opinions were never about you in the first place. They were always about them, about their fears, their insecurities, their limitations. And once you see that, their power over you evaporates. You reclaim your voice, your strength, your life. You begin to live not for them, but for yourself. And in doing so, you discover a kind of freedom that they can't touch, a kind of power that they can't take away. You become untouchable, unstoppable, unshaken. Their hatred becomes irrelevant. Their noise a distant echo in the background of your life. And as you rise, as you step fully into your truth, you inspire others to do the same. Because there will always be those who are watching, quietly taking note of your courage, your resilience, your refusal to conform. They may not say it out loud, but your strength gives them permission to find their own. Your voice becomes a beacon, a reminder that it is possible to live authentically, to rise above the noise, to choose freedom over fear. In the end, their hatred is nothing more than a distraction. It's a desperate attempt to hold on to a world that is slipping away, a world where conformity is king and freedom is a threat. But that world is not your concern. Your concern is your own growth, your own path, your own truth. And as long as you stay true to yourself, as long as you refuse to hear their noise, you will continue to rise. So let them talk, let them judge, let them hate. None of it matters. Because the only voice that truly matters is your own. And when you choose to listen to it, when you choose to value it above all else, you step into a life that is entirely your own. A life where you are free, where you are powerful, where you are unbreakable. Their hatred is their problem, not yours. Your only job is to keep moving forward, to keep growing, to keep living your truth. Because that is the ultimate act of defiance, the ultimate expression of freedom, the ultimate victory over the noise.